Hello my friends and welcome to the channel. Now I'm going to talk about 6 benefits of living with and driving an EV. And if you don't like EVs, or you try to pretend that you like them but you don't really because you're scared of the future, you're scared of losing what you have now, or whatever it is, because there's a lot of you in the comments that basically are pretending you like EVs and you really want them to fail. It's not going to happen. It's too late. So let's focus on the positives. Here are 6 of the positives of owning an EV. Now, aside from never ever having to visit a petrol station or a gas station ever again, except for maybe a coffee, but you can get your coffee when you charge your EV on a long distance trip, I guess, or from an actual proper coffee place. That's probably a smarter idea. Now, there are a number of other benefits. Now, the first of those is peace and quiet. Yep, noise does actually tire you out, believe it or not. Now, one of the benefits of an EV is peace and quiet that you're treated to from being behind the wheel. And also, if you live in a street where there's noisy traffic wakes you up at early in the morning. I've had that experience before. It sucks. If you live in a city, the noise of traffic just never stops. Well, one day, it's going to be a lot quieter when all those vehicles are EVs. But for now, you can treat yourself to a bit of peace and quiet in your EV. Now, as there is no conventional combustion engine, for better or worse, there is no engine noise, but there is also less vibration. Now, with this in mind, an EV creates a calm environment for all its occupants. And let's face it, we can always do with some added calm, especially when dealing with stressful bumper-to-bumper traffic. Number 2, response. Yep, response is way better in an EV. Electric cars, even the slower ones, are renowned for their immediate response. No turbo to have to build up boost like my current car. Irritating. I press the accelerator and I get nothing, and then all of a sudden, Meh! It's not easy to drive in traffic. An EV is way easier. Now, unlike most petrol or diesel cars, where you have to build revs to find the engine's optimal torque range, in an electric car, the motor or motors answer without any hesitation at all. So it's much more predictable. Peak torque is available from 0. Now, that instantaneous torque and response is exhilarating. With a mini EV I drove, for example, it offers a maximum output of 135 kilowatt and 270 newton meters, or around about 180 horsepower. But due to the way the electric motors work, off-the-line acceleration is faster than what it would otherwise be, getting those same outputs from an ICE car. Number 3, fun. I'm telling you guys, electric vehicles are not boring. Contrary to all the massive homers out there who can't stand change, can't stand the future, and EVs are boring appliances, it's not true at all. Just look at all the awesome videos on YouTube of many fast EVs, people having fun driving them. Now, along with the power, torque, and acceleration of EVs, another handy feature in an EV is the ability to adjust the regenerative braking. In many EVs, you have the ability to select the severity of regenerative braking. Regenerative braking harvests energy that would otherwise be lost as you slow down, and it feeds it back into the battery. In some cases, it can be strong enough to bring the vehicle to a complete stop, so you don't even have to put your foot on the brakes in normal traffic. People call this single pedal driving, one pedal driving. It's a pretty cool feature, and in many ways, it changes the way you go about driving, completely changes it altogether. It puts your focus on the traffic flow and the road conditions around you. It also saves you a shit ton of money. Seriously, guys, every single time you brake, it costs you money. Literally costs you money. Just imagine every time you brake, taking $1 out of your pocket and giving it to someone else. That's what's happening. Imagine every time you brake your EV and someone gives you $1. That's what's happening. Seriously. When you brake your EV, you recharge the battery, right? When you brake your ICE car, what happens? You wear out your brake pads. And other things, of course, your discs as well. Most people who own an EV never have to replace the pads or the discs. There's somebody in Australia here who has done over 400,000 kilometres in their Tesla Model S, using it as a taxi, ferrying people all around Sydney. They've never changed their brake pads. Seriously. Crazy. I can't wait for that. Number 4, cost of ownership. The cost of owning an EV is much cheaper than a petrol, diesel, gas vehicle. Why? Well, simply there are less moving parts under the bonnet. A lot less moving parts. A basic electric service, for example, a mini EV, is $900 Australian dollars over 5 years. For the equivalent petrol or diesel version, it's $3,000. Now, with a Tesla vehicle, you actually don't have to service it at all. Look at the operations Tesla service manual. It tells you to change the wiper fluid, check the tires. There's really almost nothing you have to do on your EV to service it. Now, plus, another advantage of this is you can choose when to charge your car. You can use off-peak electricity rates and supply options that work for you. This means you can avoid those fuel price hikes that we all seem to find happen on a long weekend. Or right as the weekend comes, all of a sudden, the petrol stations, the fuel stations, the gas stations lift their prices. Well, you can avoid all that by having an EV, and then if you install solar panels, you can basically charge it for free. Remember, another thing about owning an EV is they also last longer than a petrol, diesel, gas vehicle. Much longer. Current batteries coming from BYD and from other suppliers are said to last for at least 1 million kilometers or more. So what that means is the car will wear out before your battery does. And what's the main part of an EV? The battery. That's what you're paying for. That's a big part of the cost anyway, isn't it, right? Well, with an ICE vehicle, the biggest part of the cost you're paying for is probably the motor, the engine. And those wear out for most cars after around about maybe 250 to 300,000 kilometers, meaning it's often cheaper then to replace the car. So, good chance if you buy an EV, it's going to last you probably twice as long, maybe even 3 times as long as an ICE vehicle. So the cost of owning that car is far, far lower in the long run. Number 5, our final one, is it's cleaner and much greener. That is a true fact. Whether you want to believe it or not, it is true. Mathematically supported by science, not by bogus news media trying to clickbait you into believing that EVs are bad. It's not true. Now remember, energy generation around the world is changing to renewable energy quite quickly. Many countries are actually changing over very, very quickly because it's simply cheaper to run. It's simply cheaper to create energy through solar, wind, and battery storage. Solar, wind, and battery storage is cheaper than coal or gas generation in most parts of the planet. Now, it's a no-brainer that buying an electric car, you're doing your bit for the environment. And hey, every bit counts. And while no fuels and no oils makes the car itself clean and green, you can also choose how you charge it up to stay especially green. Home-based solar or even an energy provider with a dedicated renewable energy supply commitment helps you keep the running costs down, and it makes the whole experience much better for everyone's environment. Like I said earlier, diesel and petrol fumes are proven to cause cancer and obviously proven to cause just immune system issues. Might be small issues, might be big. It depends on how many issues you've currently got. If you've got several comorbidities, then there's a higher chance that your immune system is weak, right? And it's going to be more affected simply by breathing in toxins every day, especially if you're in a city where there's, for example, Beijing. Living in a city like Beijing where there's a huge amount of toxic fumes. Obviously, if everyone in Beijing started using EVs overnight, imagine the difference in air quality. It would be enormous. Now, guys, while we're still in the early days in terms of infrastructure and the uptake of EVs in many countries around the world, don't be afraid to give it a go. Remember, the average commute distance is around about 30 kilometers per day or around about 20 miles in most major cities in the world. So around about 75 to 80% of people's commutes in the entire world are less than 30 kilometers per day. So even an EV with a lower range of, say, 200 to 300 kilometers is going to do enough for you 99% of the time. Now, the best thing, though, to do is to consider the range that you need, test an EV, and ensure you have the correct charging facilities to make your life easier. I much prefer being able to charge my iPhone into the power socket at night rather than taking it to a petrol station and filling it up with petrol. Quite a big advantage. Now, some of the added benefits of living with an EV are great performance. It's clean, it's cost efficient, and it helps the environment too. Plus, they can be a lot of fun. Thanks for watching the video. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.